Dublab.
Welcome to Her Vision, Her Voice, a show where we celebrate the bold and powerful voices of women who are redefining the music and film industries. I'm your host, Aline Kazarian, and in each episode we'll dive into conversations with trailblazers who have turned obstacles into opportunities, using their vision to amplify their voices and inspire change. Today I will be joined by Emma Higgins in the second hour of the show. Emma is a writer and director whose work blends coming-of-age storytelling with a sharp genre sensibility. Most recently, she made her feature directorial debut with Sweetness, which premiered at the 2025 South by Southwest Film Festival and is now available to rent and own. The film has been praised for its fresh, dark take on adolescence and stars Kate Hallett, Herman Tamaras, and Aya Furukawa. Originally from the Pacific Northwest, Emma is a self-taught filmmaker who has built a distinctive career directing commercials and music videos, known for her bold visual style and eye-catching art direction. Her music video for Jessie Reyes' No One's in the Room took home Video of the Year at the 2021 Juno Awards, and she's collaborated with brands including YouTube, Chime, Cheetos, Best Buy, and Rockstar Energy. Emma now calls Los Angeles home, where she's continuing to build her unique voice as a filmmaker. And I am now joined by Emma Higgins in the studio. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were chatting off air about life and the show and everything, but I want us to start at the beginning for you. And I want you to think back on when you were a kid growing up and what storytelling and images meant for you at that time before you even knew you wanted to be a director.
I think the truth of it is that it was a safe space. I think I really enjoyed whether it was books or, frankly, Disney movies or, the Mr. Rogers on TV, all those kinds of things. It was just a really safe space to go and exist in my imagination, and I understood the power of stories. So it had nothing to do with, even filmmaking at that point, just it being this place where you could travel and, go to other places and spend time with different people. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious because you've described yourself as somebody who, you want to tell the kinds of stories that other people haven't made or that you haven't seen before. And considering that you're also a writer, I wonder if there was a point in your career where you realized that the kinds of stories you wanted to tell were not going to be handed to you, and you were the one that would have to make that a reality for yourself.
I think that we live in a very capitalistic society.
Well, that's a fact.
That's not. Yeah, you're right. That's
just a fact.
Take. So people want to repeat things, that have been done and proved before and have made money, and so they're just kind of. I feel like very often, chasing their tail and stuff. And everyone says, "Oh, we want the next big new idea, and we want the next big voice, and that kind of." But there's no precedent for it, so it's risky, right? So if you're trying to do something different, or just that's not, a Brad Pitt movie plus, this action, franchise IP, it's just too risky. It's like these things give us numbers. So there's just not a lot of that kind of risk taking, I think, happening. If you call it risk taking, I don't think it is, but I just felt like those were the main projects that were coming to me. So if I wanted to do something a little bit different, I would just have to bring it to Hollywood and financiers that way. But I don't know. I hope we're getting progress. 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
Then another step back, and then, hopefully another step forward.
Yeah.
I think I'm describing the salsa. It's a salsa of progress.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful way to put it. I'd never thought about it as a salsa before.
Yeah, you cha-cha forward and then back and then to the side a little bit sometimes.
Well, I do think it is a particularly interesting time right now. I mean, I'm sure you've seen all the conversations around obsession and backrooms. It's obvious, personally, it's gotten a little bit nauseating at this point because a number of things. But one thing that really sticks out for me is the fact that those sorts of stories have been around and people have been wanting to tell those sorts of stories for a very long time. It's always been there. Mm-hmm. But to your point, it's this fear of wanting to give that trust to a filmmaker to just make that film and instead go for the comfortable route of, let's do the remake. Let's just, keep squeezing as much of that IP as we can and just keep putting out more and more of, honestly, it just is boring.
Yeah, we got Scream 7 now, Scream 8. Like, I'm a fan, but I'm like, come on, can we get something new? And that's, I think, nice to see with Obsession or Backrooms. That's my space. I like genre filmmaking. So it's really good to see that some of these originals are getting love. But, there's also, there's lots of spins on that too. Like Backrooms, again, they still had IP for that. It was kind of tried and true online. So, but we're happy to see it. Yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit, because I want you to talk about when you really started working and what those early years were looking like for you in your career. Because you're a self-taught filmmaker, right? Like, you didn't go to film school. So what was that? Yeah. What were those early years like for you?
Scrappy. Yeah. Very scrappy. I think, it's interesting because I grew up in Vancouver, where there is a big film industry. So I was lucky in that way. If film school wasn't the path for me, but I was fortunate to live in a city where I, wound up being able to basically answer Craigslist ads and get onto film sets, and then do jobs from there, kind of ask questions, figure out where I wanted to be. I didn't know I wanted to be a filmmaker and a director. I just knew I wanted to be on set at first. So I was fortunate I could go and do that. And over the years, I started to make my own little stuff and, take opportunities, whatever they can be. It was definitely, I have done every kind of job. I always tell people, it's like you see this little tip of the iceberg and you don't see the, over 100 music videos I've made, or, all the dozens of short films or corporate videos that I've made, or tutorials on how to use mousse for your hair, like whatever it was that got me on set and behind a camera. I was doing it for those years. And for me, I'm so grateful. It gave me so much confidence. It gave me the language and the understanding of a bunch of different departments on set. Some trauma for sure, but it was also, that's my path and what worked for me. And, it's gotten me here, and I continue to just love being on set. So,
did you have a moment where it did click for you that you wanted to be a filmmaker, or was it sort of a natural progression?
No, to be honest too, I think I was probably 19 or 20. I was working full time in the film industry, doing just other crew jobs. And at that age, I was like, damn, this is hard on the body. These hours are rough. And I was looking, as everyone does, I was like, okay, so, these guys up here though, sitting in the chairs, they seem to come in and, it seems a little better for them. So I knew I would have to do something more sustainable. And I think if there was a specific moment, I don't know if I can name what shoot it was on, but I think it was the first time I really sat behind the monitor and I saw something that I'd realized on the monitor. And it's magic. I think that's the thing I'm always chasing, is you have this idea and you think, oh God, wouldn't it be cool if that happened? And then, you cut to a month later, 2 months later, 2 years later, and then there's 50 people all there, and someone was up all night making a prop to make your vision happen. And someone else is, fixing their hair, and it's just like, and then it's there, and the thing that was in your head is in the real world as a result of this collaboration. It's so cool. So the first time that happened and it actually turned out what was in my head, I could never go back.
Yeah. Because you came up directing a lot of music videos, a lot of commercials. So I'm wondering, considering that, being in those industries, it oftentimes feels like you're executing somebody else's vision. I'm wondering what the switch was to making a feature when a lot of the creative decision-making really falls back on you.
Honestly, it was kind of amazing. I think that it was really, it was, it's really hard and it feels very vulnerable in a way. I don't know that I even felt as much of that vulnerability while making Sweetness, my film. It was more almost when we had to start showing it, and I started doing interviews and I started doing press and really answering for choices I'd made. And that was, at that point I was like, oh, I feel exposed in this moment.
Yeah.
I am. You guys are like, someone was like, so do you have issues with your father? I really picked up. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I was, you're really, you realize suddenly that, there's this sort of curtain, I think sometimes with like, you know, it's personal, but, there's a bit of a curtain sometimes on set. And then, that very much was pulled back when I was interfacing with people who, were in the audience, right? Like with music videos, with commercials, I never enjoy or see people enjoying this stuff or hating or clicking through the things I make. It's just, I'm completely divorced from the audience. You don't see them with it. So that was a very different experience, but yeah, just much more vulnerable, but also kind of a dream, because in those other mediums, yeah, you don't always, the buck doesn't stop with you. Whoever's paying for it's going to, you know, you're in service of that, what they need. And that can also be heartbreaking because, you know, it's not my choice to kill a shot or something. It's theirs. So,
yeah. Were there lessons that you learned in those instances where you were working on a music video or commercial where, you know, a lot of the decisions were made by other people, where you were able to bring that over to feature filmmaking, or are they very different in terms of how you approach making something?
No, I think there's a ton of lessons. I do advocate for anyone who wants to be in filmmaking. That's, you know, again, it's my path, but I think that because I learned so many lessons from different on-set experiences, that it's always valuable to be there, and you learn to advocate for your voice in ways that you're going to still have to do that on your feature, you know, whether you're on set and you're trying to convince an agency or a client that, you know, this is going to be a good way to tell the story, or you're, you know, trying to convince a producer to give you an extra 5 minutes because you need this shot for, you know, the big finale of your movie. It's these, you know, these things are kind of the same leadership skills, all of that. It really, I think there's a lot to learn from those short form mediums.
Before we really get into Sweetness and maybe some of the, you know, the ways that you felt after you made the film and some of the things that you talked about that vulnerability and, you know, doing interviews with a number of different people and having to communicate something that you made that, you know, came from your heart and that meant a lot to you. I guess I'm also curious to know what the experience was like really making a feature film from the ground up. And did you know a lot about how to go about making a film in regards to like sales and distribution and all of these things? Or was it a learning experience throughout the process?
There was a lot of learning, certainly with making this film. You know, we didn't do it for the biggest budget, and we everyone had to wear many hats. So I had thought I'd known a lot, and then I went into the process and I realized I knew very, very little, and I still know very little. There's, you know, it's so impressive. Anyone who's making indie films, I feel, will tell you, which is just, it's a house of cards and a miracle. Anytime something gets made. If you make something halfway decent, you know, hats off. It is so hard to do things and gather a group of people in a time and a place and make something. It's very challenging. And then to get it seen, to get it into a festival, to get it distribution, another miracle. It's very, very difficult and very complicated. And there's really no one way to do it either, is, you know, kind of interesting. So everyone has their different methods in which they got their movie made. And, you know, I came up reading Robert Rodriguez's book where he talked about selling his blood or things to get his $7,000 for his first feature. And, you know, people are coming up with money however they can.
I mean, I hope you didn't have to sell your blood to...
No, I don't know if you can you sell blood? I don't know. I'll look into it.
Well, with the first feature, I think there could be this sort of, you know, like it defining you in the eyes of the industry, because it is your first feature. And in a lot of ways, it tells the world a lot about who you are as a filmmaker. So did you find that people wanted to have different sorts of conversations with you about your career based on Sweetness, or did you feel differently?
No, I feel it did sort of, it gave me a validation, I think, in the industry's eyes in a way that I'm like, okay, you can competently deliver a story in 90 minutes. So that, I think, allowed a lot of conversations to happen in a bit more serious way that I think maybe didn't before. The good thing about Sweetness is that I do feel that it expresses the kind of film I would like to make. It's got some humor. It's got, girlhood themes, and it's a genre film. It's a thriller. So it has all these things that I like, and I think that it's very easy to get pigeonholed in our industry. So if I'm going to get pigeonholed in one thing, I want it to be the thing that I like. So hopefully I got to continue making things at least in this vein. And it seems to be that's what it's attracting for me now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working on another project at the moment? Are you writing anything?
I'm writing so much. I'm in writing jail for myself right now, which is just
love it.
My best behavior. And I try and I right now I just do 5 pages a day every day until the end of the month. And I'd like to write I just give myself little deadlines like this when I can. And a couple other things I'm really excited about. So I'm keen to get back on set. The other thing about making narratives is, we shot that movie 2 years ago, and now I'm itching to get back into the thing that I love the most, the thing I got into this for, which is being on set. And with short form, I used to be on set a couple days a month at least, right? And now I'm like, okay, it's years of development, and we're in post, and now we're promoting the film and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I love it, but where's my set?
Yeah.
I want to get back there.
Well, speaking of writing, something that I've always been very interested in is the projects that never make it to screen, mm-hmm. and how that can potentially shape a filmmaker, maybe even more so than their successes. Have you found that to be true for you?
I think they're all just steps. I was very far along in getting a different film from Sweetness off the ground that was going to be my first film, and then COVID hit and the whole thing fell apart, and it just was back to ground zero on that too. I had to mourn it. It was really, you get attached to characters and the possibilities and all that kind of stuff too. So it feels like I'm not going to say I'm grateful for it. I think that it's just what it is, but I'm happy that Sweetness was my first feature. I'm happy that it came when it did. Sometimes I think that these things you just have to trust in the divine timing of it all. There's nothing you can do to control it. And perhaps just, like I said, all I can do is show up and write my 5 pages of my script every day and continue to work, and hope that the industry meets me and we can continue to make stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, a lot of it is divine timing, and a lot of it is just all the stars aligning at one time. I think I may have listened to you in a different interview. I think you had said you pull tarot cards.
We did,
yeah. Which when I had Kat Weber on the show last month, she had mentioned something about pulling tarot cards before a project too. So is your process very similar to hers? Like what does that look like for you?
Well, I think that it's always interesting. I talk with friends and different creatives about just a way in, and I think the tarot is just a way in. It's a thought prompt. It's a starter. So, and it's not always a starter for me too. There's a bunch of different ways in, but sometimes it's just nice to, it doesn't feel so overwhelming, or you can kind of like pull a card and then say, okay, cool. What do we have here? The 7 of Wands, and what would that apply to this story here today? And, what you think of unravels something, and maybe it's a path you travel down and decide it's not right. And maybe it is right, and it unlocks something. It's kind of, it's just such a cool part of the process. I think.
Yeah, I think it adds a little bit of fun to it.
Yeah, exactly, and it should be fun and playful, and that's also something I'm really trying to reconnect to right now. Is like I said, we've been promoting the film and doing all these other aspects and distribution and all that and sales, but that pure just sitting there with a deck of cards and a blank page or whatever, and like ideas, that's my favorite. It's so fun. And if you can get back to that childlike expressiveness, it's the best place to be. So
totally, yeah. I think a lot of creative people can get caught up in, especially at a certain point in their career, I think they can get caught up in the, just what's my next move? Like, what do I have to do? That sort of mentality. And maybe in that process, you kind of lose touch with just the fun of it all and being creative and being able to, just kind of let go and make what you want to make without there being this unnecessary sort of pressure,
It's also tough. I mean, I think a lot of filmmakers will tell you too. I had, Sweetness premiered at South by Southwest, and I signed with an agency and then kind of did the water bottle tour, as we call it. So it's just going to meet with studios all around the city, meeting producers and the execs, and you go into all the rooms and, it's been great. And they're all trying to meet their quotas and do their things as well too. But you spend a year just with everyone telling you, we're looking for this, we want this, we need this to fill out our slate. And then you start to think you're like, okay, I need to make an erotic thriller with that can have a vehicle for this star and, come out with to coincide with this holiday. It's like I need an erotic Valentine's Day thriller or whatever it is. And so you're starting to chase that outcome rather than, and it's, I don't know. I understand that film is certainly a space where we need money to make it. It's not a cheap art form by any means. It's wildly expensive to make films, and people need to make money back. And I'm not interested in making uncommercial or unenjoyable films. But I don't know if I can do it from the space of chasing what's prescribed. I think I just have to find that sweet spot where it's going to fit into the commercial space, and it can come from that. It's just not helpful to sit and try and fill a box for a studio, I think.
Right. And I think it can be quite hard to find the kinds of people who align with you on so many different levels. So you don't feel like maybe you're having to set aside your, morals or something in order to, provide a piece of art for the studio. Right. So it's an interesting dance.
And that is getting complicated these days.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's kind of.
Do you think it's more so than before COVID?
I think so. I think, we're seeing right now a lot of the big, conversations are this merger. And then beyond that, tech wrapping its arms around Hollywood. And we just saw the Sam Altman film get dropped from, was it Amazon?
I think so.
They don't want to say anything bad about OpenAI and, what's that about? So that's, there's some things that are concerning and I think we should be talking about.
Yeah.
Happening right now that, weren't happening before COVID. At the same time, I don't think that, I'm not entirely bleak about it. I feel like every 5 years we have a industry ending event, but we still manage to continue to make things.
Well, I think because there's always a need for people to tell stories. It's innate, right? Like you think back to caveman days, people were painting pictures on walls, like in the darkest of depths in the caves. You know what I mean? So like that's always going to be there, but it's just to your point about, these tech guys who have taken over Hollywood and are just trying to, expand their reach as much as possible. And then all these conversations around AI and what that is going to look like and how that's going to shape the film industry. Some people are for it, some people are against it, some people are in the frame of mind of, it can be used as a tool. And then other people who are just like, fuck no, I don't think this is appropriate at all. So I think there is a lot of things happening that are very uncomfortable. And I guess the frustrating thing is that I'm not really seeing anything being done, right? Like I don't know. The fact that we're just allowing things like Fox to buy Roku for billions of dollars and then essentially control what those consumers are going to be seeing is just insane. The fact that that's just being allowed is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's only ever happened during a Trump administration. So like, there's also a lot of politics involved in all of this. So...
And it comes back to that fact, the capitalism thing that
yeah,
we're talking
the
about.
late stage capitalism.
It's just when there's money to be made. And yeah, I mean, one of the other things that's sort of soul crushing is, now that it's like you can shop the look of a character on screen while you're watching the show and get the products that are placed within it. And so everything is, you tell the story, but why not just sneak in some other products that you can also buy on Amazon? And it just
fully take advantage.
Yeah, it's
of
kind
everybody.
of that 360 money making endeavor, and I don't know. It's I hope that consumers start to get a little frustrated with that too.
Yeah, just like fight back a little bit. I know I've seen some conversations online about people who are just sick of it and they're just, unsubscribing from a lot of these different subscription services and trying to do what they can in their own power. But it's hard, right? Because you need to rally a lot of people together in order to have any sort of significant change. Otherwise, it's just going to be these incremental moments, which hopefully will be positive, but it's really, really hard. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of sustainability, which you brought up that word a little bit earlier too. I think there's always a lot of conversation around breaking into the industry and how you can break into the industry, but I think there are not as many conversations around actually sustaining a career as a director. What has been the biggest challenge for you in sustaining a career as a director?
I think that the biggest challenge for most people it's not financially viable. It's very hard to make a living as an artist, and I think a lot of people simply have to tap out. I was lucky that I started very early, in that my real starving artist years, like literally just living on ramen and having 18 different roommates and every possible thing, but that was all through my 20s at least too. If you're starting later or something like that and you have people who depend on you financially, you can't take those years to go and do that and earn nothing and build a reel and take risks and bet on yourself. And it's really hard to do that for a prolonged period of time. So if you go into the industry as a filmmaker and you put everything in on one project and that doesn't go, then you got to tap out and go back to a corporate job and with health benefits and the like. And it's just very challenging to do. And I think that's why we see a lot of, we talk a lot about Nepo babies in the industry, but it doesn't mean that they don't work hard, but even people with rich parents, that kind of thing too, you can stay in the industry longer if you have a bit of a pad to do that. So I think I always talk about the barriers of entry that are just financial, and it being one of the bigger reasons why we don't get more diverse voices in the industry, and advocating so much too that the biggest thing we can do is pay people, to get them paid so that they can continue to do their art, that they can continue to break into these spaces. And it's just doing that over time, because it's just very tough. I see people all the time have to tap out because they need to.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Because that's something I've thought about a lot in terms of, making sure that filmmakers and just artists in general are getting paid. But what does that look like? Is it a salary? But then how do you determine how somebody gets a salary? Or is there a different format? Is there a different sort of structure that can be built to help sustain the careers of artists long term, so that, to your point, we're able to have more diverse voices, people who don't have access, people who aren't Nepo babies? How do we even go about creating that change? Is that something that the unions can do? I mean, like, these are things I've thought about for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have this conversation too with you, because I'd be curious, what you've come to learn, having all the folks that you have had on this in conversation. But yeah, I think that DEI should be part of, they should have incentives and things like that too, to keep different people in the industry. I think schools should as well. I think that I mean, mainly just it's really hard to say. It's so widespread, but like consistently, if people didn't hire women just in Women's History Month and people of color during Black History Month, and then never use them again for the whole rest of the year to do these jobs, that would be help too. It's, you know, sustained investment in them. Yeah, I don't have the answers here, but I don't know if that was just a bleak answer to the question as well, too. Is that it's really hard to sustain financially. For me, like I said, I worked on sets. I worked every possible way I could, and definitely, you know, just continued to grind out, and was fortunate enough to start to eventually be able to call directing my job. But yeah, it was a solid, like, 8 or 9 years of really
just a long time.
Yeah.
Just grinding.
Yeah. And that's it. Living with a dozen roommates and doing that kind of stuff. And trying to keep my overhead really down. Yeah. And putting my career first because I was single and young.
Yeah. Well, I've had a number of conversations with filmmakers who, even when they're writing their feature or even a short, that oftentimes they're having to take projects like commercial projects, right? Or music videos or just something to keep them going financially. And I wonder if that was a similar situation for you too when you were writing Sweetness, or if at that point you were like, I'm good, I'm solid, I can just put all of my attention on writing the script.
Lord, no. I was constantly like every, you know, I even now too, I dive in between projects and you sort of make it work, you know, and with writing Sweetness, I wrote that over a period of years and whenever I could get time. Yeah. You know, it's like around your full-time job. And so you have to love it. And yeah, you also have to be a little bit lucky too.
Do you feel like the way you find inspiration has changed over the years?
Yes. I think I used to be much more rigid, I guess, in these things. And
what do you mean by that?
I really felt like I had to have the circumstances be correct in order for inspiration to hit.
Interesting.
And now I see it more as a muscle that is, you know, before I'd be like, okay, I'm going to drive out to the woods and I'm going to sit under the trees and then whatever. And then I'm going to listen to this playlist and I might do a microdose or something. And then I'm going to get inspiration and like curate this. And now I'm like inspiration. I'm keeping creativity always, every day as a practice. I'm finding it standing in line at the grocery store or while I'm driving my car or whatever it is. And I'm just kind of making it more of a daily practice than this like intense thing I chase or whatever. It's just a little less romantic.
Well, so it's also what you described of I'm writing 5 pages a day.
Yeah.
It's a routine. I think routines oftentimes get this bad rap, but I actually think they end up heightening your creativity in a lot of ways.
I think so too.
Right?
I think I'm inspired by routine.
Yeah.
And before I used to be inspired by these like the sky and the tree and right. Like I still am, but like it's just a little more bland and everyday.
Well, I mean, I went to art school, so there was this idea of like, you know, inspiration strikes at any moment. And like, if you spend some time in nature, then it's going to inspire you in some way. And I went to Art Center College of Design, which literally is on a hilltop. So like you could just walk out and there were hills and it was beautiful. And I think the idea was it can be inspiring for artists to just be in a different environment for a little while. But I personally had found throughout my career that I need routine. Yeah. And if I don't have routine, and if I'm just like willy-nilly kind of trying to gather, you know, inspiration, it's just not going to come at all.
It might, but it's
no.
Yeah. It's not. It's kind of funny too. And there was something I you know, when you're younger and you're reading art literature and you got your Patti Smith book and you're the stuff and you're like, you know, I'm gonna like this artist version of myself, and I was like, I'm gonna I don't know. I need to like get high and like sit in a warehouse, and then I'll be a true creative and be heartbroken. And it's like, no, I actually do much better when I'm in like stable circumstances, sober in a routine. Like it's
right.
That's
just everyday life. Considering that we were talking about, these barriers to entry and that whole conversation, I think there's been quite a bit of progress in terms of conversations around inclusion in film, but I feel like the numbers of like who actually gets financed and, who gets a second feature, for instance, is still very complicated. Where do you think the industry is falling short on that matter?
I think that the industry is mainly falling short because we don't have enough people at the top who are making those decisions that are, women or people of color or queer people as well, too. It's just frankly, I think it's a bigger problem of just general sexism and racism that is completely integrated into every part of everyone's life, and that you just, the execs and stuff too are really, they don't blink an eye about giving like a young white guy a $15 million movie for his first feature, no problem, second feature. He's got it. He looks like every other director that's come before him, and there's an inherent trust in him and his abilities. And when he says something, he knows what he's talking about. And that same grace is just not extended to people who don't look or sound or have different expressions than, the historic picture of a director or filmmaker. And so whether people are even aware of it or not, they're scrutinizing and they're concerned, and I don't know, can she handle it, and can they handle it? It's just it's a big risk, it's a $15 million movie. It's the industry falling short on the thing that most industries are probably falling short on, which is just there's a lot of ingrained sexism and racism.
Yeah. And to your point too, I think to add to that is the people at the top are oftentimes not very creative people. I think a lot of those people tend to be either tech people who just are there to fulfill a quota for the company that they're working for and make $1 bajillion off of it, right? So it's all, that's the thing, it's like a domino effect. It's just every element is connected to each other. And so it makes it exceedingly difficult to break open those doors and be able to get to the top, even if you are creative and you want to be in that kind of position. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe there are a number of creatives who are just like, I don't want that kind of job. Like, I just want to be able to focus on my art, and I just want to be able to put it out into the world, and that's it, right? Like, that's what gives them fulfillment and happiness. But I think a lot of it too is that we just don't have enough creative people at the top who really understand what these sorts of conversations mean.
I'd push it to say I am sympathetic of a lot of these people in their jobs, and I do think there are great execs in the business, but I think it's beyond just not having enough creative people. I think it's actually not having enough empathetic people in a way to understand, to actually step out of their own experience and frankly, just imagine oh, this story's just, it's maybe not for me as a man. But it could be I could relate to a character who's not a man. Let me try that for a second and see how that would work. And other people might enjoy it. And just also understand as well too, that I think one of the more interesting things too is I came up working under all these directors that were exclusively under male directors when I was working on sets. And there's a different way that men also conduct a set, and they hold power, and it tends to be loud, and balancing when they see femininity, they don't attach it to power. And so often too, women directors will step into there. And I was guilty of this in my first few years directing, is that I was trying to emulate the male directors and that male way of leading. And like the masculine energy is just what people equate to competency and leadership. I think we see that in all fields. And so it's just, when I say empathy and stuff too, just kind of imagining a different way of things being done and it not being weak or incorrect, just not what it has been.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you say, fuck you, to having to have that sort of to embody that sort of personality of like, I'm going to be more like the dudes on set so that people take me seriously?
There was not a moment. It's a constant detangling of the brainwashing of the patriarchy that will be a lifelong, and certainly ways that I don't understand, that I'm doing still.
Yeah.
It's a very deep untangling.
Well, look, I hope it's not lifelong. I hope we see it in our lifetime. I mean, that's at least, what I'm trying to do personally. I know there are many filmmakers who feel the same way. So I really hope that there is some sort of, I don't know, like I wish there could have been some sort of big bang kind of moment, where everything could just go to shit and we could just start all over. Alas, that is not what life is like. So, we have to work with what we have and build upon it and try and change it in whatever way we can. But I guess to the point of like creating structural change, if you had the ability to create or to change something structural within the film industry, whether it was, financing or hiring or development or even distribution, what would you change and how would that look like for you?
That is an interesting one, because it probably would just have to do with swapping personnel. Yeah, that's what I mean. Maybe just getting a bit of a retirement of an old guard and see what happened. A changing of the guard might help. But it would probably be on the financing side of that. I'd probably say that where the money comes from, changing that. But I don't know. It would also be to somehow, like I said, make every person who has to work in the industry do like a 3-month long retreat to really work on, I don't know, untangling the brainwashing that we've experienced in the patriarchal society. Can we do?
Well, even with visual storytellers and the way that I think the industry really lacks supporting visual storytellers, is there a way that you would approach even changing that aspect of the industry?
How the industry approaches visual storytellers, meaning? And
supporting them. And I feel like there's quite a lack of that, but, curious to get your take on it. I
think that there's just often, maybe it just comes down to money and stuff too. One of the things we see is, again, the industry in the short form tapping into taking those risks when it's like a lower budget job or whatever too, and they're looking into like, the culture and music videos and these things to like borrow visuals from, and then you'll see kind of these artists creating these unique and avant-garde visuals in these spaces, and it's because that there's not as much barrier of entry to music videos because they have a couple $1,000s, so like the big fish don't want to do it. And then, the big companies come along and they see it, and then they're like, well, they're going to borrow all these visuals, and the big commercials are going to show up with the stuff from the music videos and these small creators in that space 2 years later and kind of rip them off. And they're not going to hire those original creators. They're just going to hire the same people they've been hiring. So I would just say, like, as much as possible, trust in people, pay them for their art. When you see someone do something amazing for a little budget, if they can do it for a little budget, they can do it for a bigger budget. Just, stop being so damn afraid and empower people, and you'll have some great stuff come out of it. Then doing the same thing
over and over again
with the same people over and over again.
Yeah. What have you been less interested in improving as you've gotten further along in your career?
I think I've been less interested in, justifying that I deserve a place or a voice to be heard. It feels, or at least with the process of sweetness, you asked earlier about the vulnerability of that. And I think I've just learned a little bit to trust that I do have something worth hearing and that will relate to people and be different. And that's it. I think that I've just stopped trying to prove that it's something people should invest in and begging for that and just believing that it is worth it. So that's a long road to say, self-belief in my voice.
Yeah. Do you think validation played any sort of part maybe in your early years of getting in the way of how you feel now about not having to prove yourself in these sorts of ways?
Yeah, I mean, if you think that it's just, you talk about the tip of the iceberg, you receive so much more rejection and criticism than you do praise. And I think the thing I slowly started to do was just to not take any of it, really. It's like, if I really listen to the praise, and it's wonderful if people like the movie, but it also means that then I kind of have to open that door to the slew of people who don't. And I think it can just be such a kick in the shins when you're starting out to pour yourself into something and then have, even if it's an internet troll or someone, or worse, someone you know and love, be like, I don't like this. I don't get it. Why are you doing this? Why did you make this? And then you're like, God, am I a total hack? Should I just never do this again? And you can, I think a lot of people can just never do it again because you hear that feedback. So you just got to somehow, some way, just, get to that point where you're like, no, I can understand it's not for everybody, but I do believe it's still worth making.
Yeah. How did you take everything that you learned in the process of promoting Sweetness and that sort of, vulnerability that came out in the process? How do you feel like you are now, or actually, what did you learn rather in that process that you feel like you can take with you for your next feature?
Confidence, yes, certainly in myself, in my voice, and I learned definitely more trust. I think there were a lot of times, your first feature, you'll second guess and you'll think that someone else does know better than me. But I think I really learned to trust myself and that I do know best, and I am the one who's going to have to put my name on it. I mean, a ton of just truly technical things and on how to put together a budget and a sales team and even do a festival circuit run. I'd never really done that and understand how a market works. And it was so lots of just those on the job learned things that will empower me to hopefully do it again soon.
Do you think going straight to distribution and not necessarily going down the festival route is a possibility, something that maybe you've considered, that you've wanted to do?
I think, yes, if you're going to get distribution, I think a lot of people, the industry is in a really big change right now. I don't know if other people have talked about this on here too, but that the festivals really used to be much more of a market where sales actually happened and these bidding wars would happen at the festival for films. And now the studios are not buying independent films. They're simply not, and they're not really doing it at a festival.
Yeah.
And, you just get a sales. Sometimes they're at the festival, sometimes they're not. It's not as integral to your sale anymore. Mm-hmm. If you have a sales agent, they might just be sending out links and screeners to the movies because the people who are purchasing them aren't at the festival sitting in the theater. They're just going to watch it on their laptop at home and decide if they want to purchase it. So the festival's not integral. I think it is incredibly special, though. But yeah, if you have an opportunity to sell your film first, and get it to audiences, that's still. Yeah. I think I would have done that. But for me, the first time around, the festivals were a really huge leg up, I think, in just getting those distributors to pay attention to us a little bit more than if we hadn't.
I'm actually producing my first feature right now, and my writer-producer partner and I have been having this conversation a lot of like, he's very much like, I don't think we really need to go the festival route. Like, let's just go straight to distribution, which I think is exciting and also, presents certain challenges. So it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and very curious too in terms of like how the industry is shifting in that sort of way, because I've also seen just exactly what you said of like festivals just don't seem to be as important as they once were for filmmakers and for really getting eyeballs on their work. It seems like people are trying to find other ways of, you know, navigating the industry, and I think a lot of it too is that gatekeeping that has always existed in the industry, and fighting back against that. I think that's potentially also part of it. So I think we're in very interesting times, and I'm both, you know, certain days I'm very pessimistic, and then other days I feel a little bit more optimistic. And Nick and I, my producer and writer partner, and I talk about this often. But yeah, it's a weird time.
I also think the other thing to mention is how expensive festivals are too. That's not something that you might not, if you're not necessarily getting a sale out of it. I don't know if people even realize this. It's entirely out of pocket to go to a festival. You got flights, you got hotels for yourself, your team, you might be hiring a publicist to help make the most of the experience. It can
be very expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. Not as if making the film itself wasn't expensive enough, you know, and then you have to add on all of these other elements to the promotional aspect of it. And like you said, it comes all out of your pocket.
So you do have to sort of weigh that against like whether you think it's going to pay that money back to you to go, or if you can afford to do it. So something to consider as you go through this process.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, Emma, this has been a fantastic conversation. And to close, I always ask every guest this question. What kinds of doors do you hope your work opens for the people coming after you?
I hope that I will be able to prove and set a precedent for women making genre films that make money, that can do theatrical money, and then it'll be easier for other people to point to and say, okay, look, we know this type of film can make money and invest in, and then it'll, you know, give comps to other filmmakers as they go and try and get their own financing, and then we'll just get a swath of like really cool thrillers and horrors.
I can't wait. Thank you so much for doing this, Emma. Seriously, I had a really great time having this conversation with you, and you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing more work from you and everything that you're going to be achieving moving forward. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you for this
Appreciate
conversation.
You. All right. That does it for this month's episode of Her Vision, Her Voice. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will be back for another episode on July 18th. If you want to know more about what I played in the first hour of the show, make sure to check out the track list, which will come out early next week. Stay tuned for Beats of All Nations and more dublab programming coming up soon. I'm Aline Kazarian. Have a great weekend, everybody.